Good afternoon, and welcome back. We have some notes for...
Mickey 17.
Indeed, yes we do. So we just left the theater. We saw Mickey 17. It's a movie about a guy who gets recreated every single day via a printer. And basically he's used for experimentation on human
A
subjects.
human lab rat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This was a movie about halves. I would say, maybe not halves, maybe a third and two thirds. But yeah, let's start with. You want to start with good things on this one?
Sure. I'm curious what you say by that, though. You said that, and I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Just like things not committing? Is that...
Yes.
Okay,
So
just making sure.
Yeah, this movie was absolutely one where. Let's start with the opening shot.
Okay.
It has been a minute since I have had an opening shot in a movie that captured me like that. Him in the snow with the goggles, with everything like that. Man, I was entranced immediately. Seriously, I was like, okay, how did he get there? Like, all the questions started flowing through my head. It was a great opening shot, the sound design, everything like that. It was good. It was really good. And then they jump into the story of the movie, and I was enthralled for, either a third or a half or whatever the timing worked out. I was into this movie. I was having such a good time. It was a unique premise. You know, it's one of the few movies that comes out that isn't a sequel or a remake. So we were very thankful for that. And I was really, really having a good time for about half of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, fair enough. I see what you mean now. I'm 100% with you. I wasn't so super entranced by the first shot, but as it built in, the unique premise was elaborated on and why he was there and who he was. He explained the whole process of basically signing his soul away to be a lab rat. And so he, basically every time he dies, they reprint him. They're able to back up his memory and pass that along to each of his iterations. And all of that was really cool. I mean, we've seen like the Groundhog Day premise a million times, but this was interesting because of the ramifications of like replicating a human and, you know, how individualism works into that, or the human soul, or that kind of thing. And so, yeah, the world was their oyster for themes they could pick and things they could do. And it got really, really good, really, really good. And then there was a moment in the movie where they hit it where, like, a high schooler took over and basically wrote in a thing of, like, oh, now we have cloning. What could we do with this?
Oh, what if she had two boyfriends?
What if she had two boyfriends?
And you can see how that's going from there.
Yeah, we won't say anything else. But needless to say, it felt like someone else completely took the script over, lost all respect for every single character, and their motivations, you know, tanked whatever motivations they had. And then from there, the movie just kind of wandered, and there were some themes that popped out and some that didn't, and nothing was concluded, and then there was a battle, and there was a movie.
There was a movie. It was half-baked. I would argue. It was baked very well in the first half.
For the first, third half-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed actually Pattinson's performance.
Mm-hmm.
I really actually liked the voice. Mm-hmm. I thought that was funny. You know, the last role that I can remember watching him was Batman. So to go from that to this and for it to work, that was awesome.
He's still riding that breakout of Twilight train.
Yeah, seriously.
Like, I'm not a vampire. I'm not a vampire.
I'm not a vampire.
Sort of like Daniel Radcliffe writing some pretty interesting art house movies after Harry Potter.
Seriously.
Where it's like, I'm not a wizard. I'm not a wizard.
Yeah, but I very much enjoyed it. The movie set up some very interesting premises and told the gave us the exposition very well, I thought. The reasons for why he is running away from the planets, why he hopped on a ship that pretty much nobody can get on, and why he volunteered for the worst job possible to be an expendable, all made sense. Crazy loan shark in the future who dismembers people and gets enjoyment out of videotaping them. Mm-hmm. That's some scary stuff. You should run away. For
sure. Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like they set up the premise well, and it was a fun black comedy for a long time. It was genuinely funny the way that they, like, there were moments in the movie where he was being printed, but basically he's the bottom of the heap in this movie. So nobody likes, they're called Expendables, or
Expendables.
And so that's his job. He's replaceable completely. And so he's uninsurable. He talks about that. But when he was getting printed, like the lab techs would forget about him and they'd forget to put like the rolly table in front of the printer. And so he would just print and like flop out onto the floor. And when every time he got printed, it was just like, we both own 3D printers and love working with them. It was like the printer bed jerking back and forth. So he'd be like jerking in and out of this like cylinder printing machine. That was really entertaining.
It was so funny. Every single time the machine was like kind of a piece of junk, but it was this miracle machine.
Yep.
And just Pattinson is just like every
was so
time
funny.
that happened, Daniel and I just were cracking
Absolutely
up.
lost it. And
It's
so
done
like
so
the,
well.
the potential of this movie was entirely there. The storytelling was entirely there. And it almost for a while read art house movie in its premise and in the way it was executing.
And I was committed. They committed
Yeah.
so hard in that first part that we
did.
loved.
They did. They committed to well, whatever themes we thought they were committing to, and then they didn't. But like they were pushing things well, and then the entire end was it wasn't like a CG slogfest in a bad way, but you could tell like the budget actually came out, and it went away from like an art house film or something that has a really genuine story to tell, and it just kind of ballooned into several different agendas at once, and maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I couldn't really tell you at the end of the movie what I was supposed to have learned or taken away outside of I feel weird, maybe?
Yeah.
Like I feel like a little off put by the fact that there were moral dilemmas with the printing, and then there were dilemmas with like the leader of this colony that was moving along and the crap that they did, and then there was like a colonization aspect, and I don't really know what was most prevailing and why and what they were going for, but they were there, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just made you feel kind
Yeah, it seemed like
of off.
the commitment just ended as soon as it turned into there's the two of them. The last good moment was Mickey 17. He gets abandoned. People think he's gonna die. He ends up not dying. That's how all of this stuff happens in the second half. He finally gets back to the place and everybody's surprised to see him, whatever, so it's like a little bit off. He lays down in his bed and immediately Mickey 18 is lying there. Just
Sits up.
nobody noticed. He sits up, and that was hilarious.
That was
That was a great little
well,
moment.
and credit where credit is due, the cloning stuff. So for those of you who maybe, because this is probably a more niche movie we're talking about, so I'm not sure how many people will go see it, but essentially it's banned throughout this colony to have duplicates. And so he accidentally becomes a duplicate. So Mickey 17 gets abandoned, they reprint 18, or they print 18, and then he comes back and discovers 18, and 18 is very different from 17. But to the filmmaker's credit, like the clone stuff was good. Like it was the combined shots were all over, and they were handheld, and they were well done. And Robert Pattinson played two very different characters in each of them too.
Distinct and everything.
Distinct voice, distinct characteristics.
I very clearly remember when we did when we watched The Social Network, that I was talking about how those were the best twins that I've ever seen in a movie. Like best, well done. You just don't think about them, and I hadn't seen it since.
This
and
one
then
was a good
Mickey
example.
17 is like, all right, let's go for it.
Exactly.
And they were so undistracting. It literally was just two people. And the interactions between, I forget her name, but the girlfriend, and both of the Mickeys was just incredible. The fact that they had those handheld shots like you're talking about, and you noticed, I noticed nothing. I couldn't find a flaw. I wasn't looking because it was so good.
Dude, I was looking
But-
for seams the whole time, and it looked
Like
like
right
it was
here?
all like seams across well, maybe face replacement. Seams across. Well, there were body doubles certainly for like the back shots, but seams just down the middle. Like there were moments where like they were split on either side with her in the middle, and how they do that. I mean, if you have the separate plates and she's the hiding seam, and you have her comped on front of those, or if they're doing face replacement. And in the moments, like there was one moment at the very end of the movie where the two Mickeys are going out to basically strike a bargain with or figure out what they're doing next with this alien race that they stumble across that becomes kind of the final showdown. And it's the two of them standing, and their silhouette is shown as these doors rise, and it's a snowy environment out them. And their physique was entirely exactly the same, and they looked at each other, and, well, that's an easier shot to pull off. Whoever the body doubles were convincing.
They did a great
Like, they
job.
all had the same physique, and there was a full-out fight scene between the two of them at one point, and it was good.
Yeah,
like,
you could really
it was
tell
never distracting.
there was planning and love put into a lot of this, especially in that first half. There was so much planning, so much love put into it. it's funny because there's a lot of, I don't even know how to describe it, but there's kind of a trope in small filmmaking nowadays that you have to add something quirky into it, and it almost feels like they're checking a box, you know. And my example for this one, and surprisingly didn't bug me, was the fact that they were starting a macaron business. It's like, why that over everything? It feels like a small film quirk that's just checking a box. We have to put it in because it's funny, you know? Get it? There's no real joke, but for whatever reason, it worked in this one.
Yeah,
it was
it was definitely the heart and soul was a dark comedy, but it forgot what that was about halfway through, and then it became a drama that was trying to make forward progress, trying to develop characters, trying to do all this. And had they had stuck with the essence of the dark comedy, I think they would have grown their characters better, and I think they would have gotten their points across better. Because the points that they made at the beginning of the film and how they developed the place in which they were and the weird struggles between people on Earth versus people fleeing to space were all developed quite well there. And then when it got to the end, you started having this like love thing with multiple people, and then you had the conflict between both Mickeys that was never really went anywhere, and then you had like the leader of the thing like trying to take stuff over and do inhumane testing and recolonize a planet, and there was just all this stuff that got heavy but didn't really like mean anything.
Yeah,
it just was happening, and you're like, okay, this is happening, and then the movie ended, and you're like, okay, catharsis. Yeah. No,
it's like they got a we need a theme for the movie, and everybody was like, what theme? And the person said yes.
Yep.
There was climate change, politics, class
class struggles.
Yeah. The rich versus the poor. There was
general bureaucracy,
money problems, religion.
Colonization.
There was colonization, animal cruelty.
Well, and even just like the ethics behind human cloning.
Yeah.
Like that would have been a great theme to follow. And then at the end of the movie, they actually address it. Like they're like, yeah, we're going to get rid of this cloning machine because it's evil and it's whatever, because we can't justify the ethics of it. They talk about it throughout the movie, but they don't ever like incorporate it into anyone's arc. They don't make it a central point really ever, outside of the fact that you as a person feel iffy about it, where you see, Mickey 6 get solar radiation, and you see Mickey 7 get crushed by something, and like they're testing on him like a lab rat.
Mm-hmm.
That could have totally been the theme throughout, that they could have really delved into more deeply, and then the evils of the bureaucracy capitalizing on that, which they kind of did. Even the bureaucratic side was comedic in nature, but not in a poignant way. Like, did you ever see the movie Don't Look Up?
Yeah,
on Netflix. So
it was really funny.
Yeah, that one I feel like was a pretty close cousin to this one, or at least what it could have been, what this one could have been, where it's a really quirky idea. I mean, it's a doomsday movie, but it also delves into climate change. It delves into bureaucracy, and that you have a whole lot of dumb people at the helm, but you have a lot of things going on and a lot of different story arcs. But I feel like it resolved them a lot better, and it kept the comedic fashion throughout to where it wasn't pointing fingers necessarily, but it was making some pretty good points at the end of the day. And this one kind of tried it, but kind of didn't, because it didn't know what points it was making, and then it never made them.
They set up everything and then closed like half of one.
Yeah, like the door, it was still mostly open.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I would say, to the movie's credit, though, like you said, the acting was great.
Yep.
I thought generally across the board, although I didn't like most of the characters, and I know I wasn't really supposed to like many of them, but even the girlfriend was pretty throwaway. And
agree.
Then she they tried to redeem her at the end, and it felt really false.
It was so forced.
It was very forced.
All of a sudden, this woman who's just basically the general love interest. That's all she is in the movie for probably about 75% of it. Mm-hmm. Just at the end, she becomes the leader.
Just like that.
What?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you get such a bad taste of her throughout the movie, too, because she's kind of, not to say she's two-faced, but so you don't see her in great lights most of the time, and so she doesn't really feel redeemable. And then there's the husband-wife leaders, the politicians, and they're hilarious.
Yeah.
And it's Mark Ruffalo just being over the top, and what's her face from Hereditary, same deal. They hilarious. So they didn't really need to have an arc, they did what they did. And then everyone else was just kind of there.
Dude.
Robert Pattinson was cool. I thought the Mickey 17 character was cool, like you said, with the voice. if other people find it annoying, fine. But I thought it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there just were like weird spin-off plots that then happened, and it just was kind of a mash. You know?
The politicians I found absolutely hilarious. I didn't expect the Hulk to come in as a failed politician who's pulled in different directions
totally.
and just goes ego on everybody. But oh my gosh, Ruffalo with veneers is hilarious.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Well, then
the
it was him
entire
like doing
movie.
his Trump impersonation too.
Yeah.
Where it's like, so we're gonna do it so well. Like, I mean, maybe that was intentional. Maybe that was the critique, but it was funny all the same.
Yeah,
So,
it was really funny. Yeah, and his wife, you said she was from which movie again?
Hereditary. She's also in Knives Out.
Knives
Trying to
Out.
remember
That's
what
where I
name
know
is.
her from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's an over the top. Well, I love it.
she was hilarious. That those two together were absolutely funny. So yeah, I will give credit to them for sure. The movie just didn't know what to do with them.
Because it kind of showed like how disconnected they were from society. But her like weird sauce obsession was
It
different.
was forced. We didn't see any of it until there's 30 minutes left in the movie, and it's like sauce.
Well, they had that's true.
Eat
Well,
the
they had
ketchup.
they had the dinner, which was kind of showing their true colors. But they also had this like underlying, like, mega church religion thing going on, where they said multiple times like, yeah, we're doing this for the faith. I mean, the company. That was it.
That was it.
That was it at the
Yeah,
end of
it
the
was
day.
trying to be all meta and stuff, and then they just didn't do anything. With
Yeah,
it.
they never explained it or committed to it. Like, I mean, they kind of talked about the fact that they were moving to this colony, well, that they were doing this was that he was a failed politician, and he basically took all these people along with him that were mega fans, and he wanted to spread the seed. He wanted to go and recolonize, and so he was this kind of slimy guy who was going to do that by any means necessary. But that was it. Like, they didn't even go to like Cult Land or something where they could have explained more of his agenda and delved into that. And maybe that would have hurt it, maybe it wouldn't have. But because they didn't really do anything in terms of committing to a side, like, it probably wouldn't have hurt at this point to explore his sliminess, to explore why he's such a weird character, such a bad dude.
Like, he's the leader of this whole ship that's leaving Earth to do this colony, and I would say that Otto from WALL-E had more character development.
Oh, yeah. As a robotic helm.
Yeah, a robotic helm had more clear goals, and we understood him more.
Give me the plant.
Yeah, exactly.
He set his goals explicitly.
Exactly. Whereas this guy was kind of just power and ego. They were also touching on that. They were trying to touch on propaganda and how leaders in the past might have seen themselves in a particular light, and that's why they did atrocities and everything like that.
He had the camera guy who was convincing him to do everything and film
You
it
know,
and stuff.
you know
That
what's
was kinda
interesting?
cool.
I liked that plot line, but then it just, again, nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happened. Just, yeah, literally nothing happened with
I mean,
it.
that being said, I think that was one of the more consistent things with Mark Ruffalo's character was the consistent people whispering in his ears to do certain things. So he had the camera guy, he had his wife, and he was clearly a buffoon who had no clue what he was doing, but he had all these people mixing into his business and convincing him to do certain things. And so especially his wife, who was always, bringing him up to do certain things that she wanted, but also the camera guy. And most prevalently at the end when they go out to encounter the alien race, and he's like, we'll do this for your glory. You'll go out there and you'll shake hands with the native creatures, and it'll be a moment to remember before you kill them and all this stuff. And he was getting this pep talk from like a camera dude. He's like, I'll make you look so good. And so like that was an interesting thing throughout to show that he was spineless at the end of the day, that he just was kind of doing the work of the people beneath him, or the people who had even maybe shadier agendas. So which I thought was interesting, that he came off as a moron in that way. But yeah, there were so few moments like that actually were consistent and investigated further.
I just want a commitment on one, because if they set up so many things, then didn't commit to any of them in the end, so nothing had closure, nothing was cathartic at all. That even if their non-commitment goes so far that they didn't even commit to just exploring this idea of oh shoot, we can just remake people and upload their memories again.
Exactly.
If it was just a movie exploring that idea, even committing to that would have been better. It was just, I think the biggest note that I have for this movie was a lack of commitment to follow through. Yeah, lack of follow through on committing to an idea, because just introducing a bunch, they just float, and then as the audience member, you kind of suffer for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Well,
I'd say
and
that's
they at
biggest
the
note.
beginning too, they even set themselves up for success to investigate the whole ethics of human duplication because they go through the process pretty thoroughly. Like what's happening? Like you follow Mickey going through his first time, signing up and enlisting, and people telling him what's going to happen, and the actual duplication and everything. So you go through it and you realize that, and then you follow the iterations of Mickey up till 17. And so like, it's a fascinating way to get that started. But I was mentioning to you in the theater a movie called, I remember what it's called now. It's called Downsizing, and it was one with Matt Damon, and it was about a procedure that he undergoes voluntarily, I guess, and a lot of people are doing it. And I think it was to combat just like overpopulation. And so they're downsizing to these little communities, and they're all of that. And so it was presented in the trailers as this comedy. It's a really clever idea. It looked really funny. And it had the exact same problem because for the first 15 or 20 minutes, it was a really funny movie with a lot of really good ideas. And it was clever, and they talked about the downsizing process, and he gets into a little neighborhood, and the crux of it is that his wife gets left behind as a big person, and he gets downsized because there's a mix-up of some sort. And so he kind of has to establish a new life because they get lost. And then it goes way downhill. It goes into like the ghettos of these little communities, and then there's like global warming bits that it goes into, and then the whole thing is doomsday, and they all have to go to like this underground arc of sorts. And the whole thing was sold to the audience as a comedy. It was sold as this kind of quirky, fun idea, same kind of thing as this movie. And it had exactly the same pitfalls, where it was an amazing premise, it was an amazing hook, and then it just was totally different for the second half. And this one I wouldn't say was quite that bad, but that's what immediately came to mind for this one, was just like this entire lack of commitment towards what you were sold at the beginning, which I think is maybe a dangerous trend in the world of movie trailers. We could even talk about the movie trailers we saw before this movie and how cookie cutter they were, and the fact that a lot of the trailer trends nowadays are kind of frightening, how similar everything is, how it's just kind of slop shoveled out. And then when you get a unique nugget like this movie trailer that graces your screen, you go and you see it, and then it ends up completely not delivering on what you were promised in the trailer. What does that mean for like art house movies? What does that mean for this kind of stuff? So I don't know. It's kind of a different train of thought, but that was something that was hitting my mind on the drive back over here, was like, we kind of learned that lesson today just in the trailers we saw, and what was promised versus what was delivered.
Yeah, you gotta set expectations for your movie. And I would say if we were setting our audience's expectations, I would say if you have a $5 movie day, like we're fortunate enough to have, I would say it's worth it. Those first 40 minutes before the title card drops, which was hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
I actually liked that, which was funny.
Took such a long time. And the title sequence, we're like, whoa.
Yeah, we're just enjoying the movie. The movie's going on and everything, and then all of a sudden, it fit too. Like it circums back. You figure out why he's in the situation he's in, and then it's like Mickey 17 is Yep, that was 40 minutes.
That was 40 minutes.
That was the only. By the way, we talk about checking your watch in a movie and stuff. That's part of our scoring system. This is the only good reason to check your watch. Is like. Title card drops 40 minutes in. Yeah. Okay,
it worked.
It was fun.
It worked. It was just kind of funny. We were both like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, we started laughing. It was actually really good. But I kind of want to talk about the beginning because that was so much fun. I really enjoyed all the world and everything. Small detail about the loan sharks: they have those balls that like attach to people and shock them. When you remember that section.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that they went to the prop house and were able to make those. They were physical props. I appreciated that.
I think the chainsaw was too.
The chainsaw was a real thing. They built one that had double blades and a speaker and stuff. And credit, man, that stuff works.
And I think the little wormy dude, when they were pushing him through the hallway, and he was in that glass chamber, I think that was a practical puppet.
You think that
too.
was a puppet?
I think so, because
That'd
there was
be
a
awesome
close-up
if
of
it
it where it wasn't moving very much, but it looked pretty tangible.
That's awesome.
So yeah, honestly, credit where credit is due.
So I love that. Huge props to the props.
It
It was little things. But seriously, I don't think anybody that worked on this is going to watch this. But if you did, we appreciate the hell out of that. Those little things make it feel so tangible. Like I legitimately believe that loan shark was a terrible guy and he had so much money that nobody could touch him. Like it was believable. And those little props helped. Instead of being a little CGI ball that rolls around and that's it,
Right.
it helps. It's worth it to go through that effort. I want to jump a little bit just to when he becomes the expendable guy and all the different testing. Oh, man, dude. Dark comedy that's hilarious.
Hey, so can you take off your gloves so we could see what's happening to your skin from the solar radiation? He puts his hand up and it gets chopped off by space debris.
Yeah, it just-
and he's just like, floats by a window. It's
Total
great.
shock factor.
great.
And then it's just dismembered hand.
Yep.
We sound morbid, but it is hilarious in the moment. It was so funny.
Yeah, the testing sequence was great. It was
Yeah.
very Groundhog Day where he's like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
just going to
Oh,
see how creative I can be with all this.
there was also like the main scientist dude, and you could tell, what was that test in San Francisco where they basically had some people play as the jailers and some people play as the inmates?
Oh, at Alcatraz?
Yeah, what was
Or
that
maybe-
test that they came up with some sort of, I'm just forgetting the name of
Yeah.
like what happened.
I
where
don't
the-
remember, but yeah, where it's just talking about power dynamics or something, right?
Yeah, and they found out that the jailer people who they actually didn't have the power, they just had perceived power, went nuts and then just treated everybody super badly. They treated the prisoners just really, really badly. I'm just blanking on the name.
Here, I'll look for it while you make your point.
Sounds good. This movie dropped a little bit of that in there. The main scientist dude, he was reveling in torturing and killing this guy over and over for his scientific gains.
It was at Stanford University.
Was it
It's
Stanford?
called the Stanford Prison Experiment.
Yeah, and then
1971.
there was a term afterwards, or am I thinking of a different thing? But either way, it
I don't know.
it touched on that
That's
idea.
the one you're talking about.
Yeah, it was hilarious. It was so small, but the main scientist dude, he reveled in it, and he got joy out of being like, yeah, we sent you out and we dosed you with crazy amounts of radiation for this test. Yeah, do this for me.
Yeah, yeah. See, and that's why that would have been such a fascinating arc to be like, what does a human lab rat look like? You know, what would it be like ethically for a human to be a lab rat? And so it's like, I'm sorry, I'm just relating this to other movies. Have you ever seen the movie The Island? It has, it's a Michael Bay movie with Ian McGregor and Scarlett Johansson.
I can't say that I have.
Okay, so the premise of the movie is that people are grown in a lab from donors who need like replacement parts. So
Oh, okay.
like a rich billionaire needs a new kidney, they basically clone him and they grow that person to fruition and then they harvest the kidney for the guy. And so, yeah, ethical problems out the wazoo.
Yeah.
Dare I say a Michael Bay movie delves into ethical problems better. There's a lot of action in it too. I thought it was a decent movie. But something like that, where, you know, the guy basically, the clone escapes, and then when he comes back, he tries to rescue them, and he sees all the crap that's going on in there and all of these ethical problems. And so then they stages a coup and all, you know, so there's actual stuff that happens. This just didn't really have that, you know? And so, you know, that's why the beginning of the movie was so good, because they delve into that, you know, they're testing on him. They're putting him in gas chambers and then they actually develop a vaccine based off of what? Mickey 6
That?
through
It was
15
like
or something?
12 through 60. Either way,
Yeah.
it was like
It
six
was
iterations.
several iterations.
What was really interesting about that point too was I was legitimately sitting there in the audience and thinking about it. And my opinion is not fully formed, especially because it's a theoretical thing.
Right.
But I was sitting there and I was like, yeah, they just went to a planet that no humans have been on, and they're trying to establish a colony in this fictional world, and they need to figure out if the air is actually breathable. You know, that's not the worst use, actually.
No.
To have somebody that can just come back to life effectively.
Yep.
That's an interesting one. Is it worth his life? And is it a life? That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Because he's just going to come back with the same memories and everything. Is it worth him dying that day and come back the next to save the entire civilization that's leaving a planet that seems doomed? Oh, that's a tough one.
Exactly.
That's a tough one.
And that's a great ethical question to explore over a
ethical
2.5
question.
hour movie that didn't get explored.
Yeah, all the other ones, it's like, yeah, radiation poisoning the guy on purpose. Yeah, no duh, that's
Yep.
horrible. But then you get to that one, and it's literally like the train tracks. You know, you have, 4,000 people or something on
Yep.
the ship, and one dude who can just come back
Yep,
to
and
life.
they only had one expendable per expedition.
Yep.
So yeah, so the weight of the colony was on his shoulders. That would have been a great way to explore the center half of the movie.
You know, I was just thinking too, if they wanted to relate it to something in this world, it would have been really interesting to talk about animal testing, animal cruelty and stuff. Because they land on this planet, they discover that there is a species that they are not, I guess it's not alien planet. They make a point of that it's their planet and the humans are the aliens and
Yeah.
stuff. So they land on this planet and discover that there is a species that they didn't know about, the humans didn't know about. And it would have been interesting for the scientists we've already found are like creepy and like doing these tests to be like, let's test them, you know? And that would have been interesting because we could have seen it through, you know, like we're all laughing at Robert Pattinson in the first half of the movie. Then the second half, we see the same things happening to these little creatures that don't deserve it.
Right.
That would have been an interesting way to make a point about how it might be unethical to do that testing and everything.
Yeah. Well, and even less for the animal side, the parallel I saw would be like IVF.
IVF.
And so in vitro fertilization.
Oh, like where they purposely?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And so that's a massive hot button issue a lot of the time. It could have been, I mean, granted, this definitely delved more into cloning, but either way, it's basically human grown in a lab and the ethics of that. And so you could have tied into some, physical matter there too. And they didn't, but yeah, I mean, either way, there could have been actual, tangible, relatable themes. And what you're talking about where you hit that fork in the road where you as a viewer are like, I don't know what I think on this.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you want from a movie. You want a moment where you're like, oh, okay. And then the movie needs to pick a lane, or it needs to at least open the door and develop the sides of the door and then let you decide. And this opened one of those like fake walls from a convention center. There wasn't a door. It was like all of it. And then they all flooded in and nothing was closed. It just was there. So yeah, like there could have been great ways, whether animal cruelty or IVF or something that talks about the ethics of it. Because there were ethics committees that were talked about early in the film where they're like, this is not allowed on Earth. And so this weird bureaucrat guy took it into space and made it ethical because there was no governing body. Excellent. Use it. Take it. Roll with it. Didn't.
Yep. Yeah.
Well,
dang, that actually like got me thinking about that. The idea that it could relate to that and talk about animal cruelty, and you see it through this species that we don't know, and you have these crazy scientists that are already known for doing horrible things to this guy, and then make parallels about how everybody on the ship sees this expendable guy. They see him the same as this species that nobody gives a crap about.
Right.
Because
well, and he could have, then he could have pulled either an avatar or something, and he could have bonded with the species. But
I would have hated that.
in that
to be
way,
honest.
then again, to tie it to another movie, did you ever see the Arrival?
I love Arrival. Such a good movie.
Where it's basically an alien race that they assume is bad until they communicate with it, and the whole movie is about the language. And I love it because it's a movie that's a slow burner, but it's an intelligent movie.
Very.
And she, basically has to learn how to communicate with these aliens. You could have rolled with that.
Yeah.
And granted, it was a comedy, so you could have done it differently. But like they kind of did with the translation stuff, where the talking alien was kind of, a little bit sarcastic and intelligent enough to be kind of interesting to talk to. They didn't, but they could have.
They could have. Man.
Never a lane was picked.
It really makes me think, because that first half, so well done, so intentional, so smart. It really makes me wonder if there was, again, I point to this, I feels like on every modern movie that we watch, but it really feels like studio interference again. It just, from an audience, just me sitting there, I get the feeling like they had the smart stuff going through, and that maybe somebody who is the director or writer or whatever, and it's based off a book. I might read that because it'd be interesting. It might prove my point, and I don't know if it's true. But it seems like the studio came in and said, we need to be more like Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that.
We need a third act that's loud and crazy and blows up. And
yeah, there needs to be an explosion because modern movies to make money have to have explosions and CG armies and blah, blah, blah.
Bad dude. And
I really wonder. I mean, Robert Pattinson doesn't sign up for things unless they're good. It seems like nowadays,
Maybe.
Or at least,
He's
really
getting better at it.
Yeah, with a really good art direction, at least.
Yeah, because he did like The Lighthouse, and he did
Yeah.
some much more niche art house films.
Committed. So I'm really curious if there was studio intervention very late on because of the stark contrast.
Yeah.
Because it just played on cheap jokes. Oh, Is that cheating? I mean, that's a dilemma, but it's also not the most interesting,
and when
considering you've
you're-
already talked about like whether he's saving all these people is worth it, and then you have a different species to deal with. So I really am curious if this was studio meddling again.
Might have been.
Yeah.
Well, when your whole second act is devoted to whatever the relationship drama was, and then the drama between him and his clone, and it wasn't drama that really mattered. There was a lot of padded runtime in the middle that could have been spent exploring things that were less impulsively divulged. That divulged the wrong kind of thing. I thought that didn't really help anything. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
good things.
Yeah, good things.
We talked about acting. We
yeah,
said that
Pattinson.
the general production was good.
Sorry, I almost forgot.
Sure.
God, there were some things that cracked me up. And it's when he's in the ice cave and his buddy lands the ship and everything and walks over. I forget what he said, but it was like, whoa, Mickey. And he just said it in this hilarious way that was just, it just cracked me up. Let me know if I'm crazy. Anybody else that saw it, let me know if that cracked you up, because I was laughing. And they say it again later in the movie, and I was just, for whatever reason, the delivery was funny bone for me.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm trying to think of moments like that. I mean,
The hand was,
the hand was funny.
Oh my
The testing was
gosh.
funny.
It was.
The whole opening sequence was fine.
I do appreciate, one thing I do want to say, even though it was still kind of stupid to me, was I do appreciate that pretty much everything had a setup. You know, what I mean by this, we see Mickey getting tested, one of his earlier iterations, that he's being tested for this toxin or something like that. And it's this green fog and everything. And we just learn about that and we see it on screen. And then it turns out later that that's the fog that they're trying to develop to kill things. It's literally a toxin that they've been developing. So we get the setup for it. So
That's true.
I do appreciate that.
And then he didn't realize it and felt bad about it.
Yeah. So that was a good little tie-in and everything. It's a good little twist that you aren't expecting. It's not even a twist, but
Yeah, it just makes sense.
on the flip side, you have the big climax and everything. 17 and 18 are out there, and they did not know how to do a climax. 17 and 18 are right next to each other, and they give this dramatic look. No music's playing. All the creatures are running around and everything. And then all of a sudden, 17 gets knocked on his feet by one of the creatures running by, and this dramatic music of sacrifice swells. You're supposed to feel all this stuff, and it's just like, wait, what? What? It was like whiplash. It was emotional whiplash, because they're literally 1 second just talking to each other, and then the next second, he's just kicked his foot out, and now it's like, he's gonna die! Don't you understand what he's doing? What was that? Did you notice
I don't
that?
even remember that, so
I was
clearly it
literally
didn't make an
sitting
impact
there, and I
on
was
me.
like, what the heck was that, man? That made no sense.
I do remember getting the foot kicked out. I don't remember any music at all
Right.
in any of this.
Yeah.
I don't remember. The sound design was okay, like the creature sounded cool, but I don't remember anything else on music, honestly.
I think there was some quirky stuff at the beginning, but it's not. I can't remember it, so not crazy notable. But yeah, again, it was absolutely a movie of two halves. In the first half, you're doing some good setup and everything, and then in the second half, no commitment, weird decisions, no emotion. The dream sequence at the end. All of a sudden, Mickey's like, they're doing the ceremony. His girlfriend's magically the leader. I still don't really understand. So she's magically the leader. He's supposed to press a button to blow up the printer thing. And then it literally just cuts, and we get no explanation, but he's all of a sudden in a dream. And we find that out, and that's it. It's just, he was in a dream.
Well, and he had narration throughout a lot of the movie, and it went away for most of it. And it was there regularly at the beginning, where it was a comedic kind of overlaying dialogue. And then in the middle, there was nothing, and then they showed back up at the sequence. So yeah, it was different. They felt like they were trying to harken back to it, to the flashback of him pushing the button in the car, which that I don't really know what was going on there, where he's like, I killed my mom because I pushed the button, and you're like, okay. But yeah, trying to harken back to that, but in a weird way.
Flat out didn't work.
Well, it was the middle of a ceremony. It wasn't like he was even sleeping or dozing off. Like, it was the middle of a ceremony, and I guess he felt it because the button was there. Like, had they lingered on the button and they were like, he had a hard time going to push it, and then they cut into that or something.
Yeah, it was literally
Would
him
have
just.
informed the decision or the.
Yeah, I think it might have cut from him
difficulty.
looking at his girlfriend to
Yeah.
dream sequence.
It did.
And it just made no sense.
Right.
And it was absolutely something where I was like, why was that in there? Literally, we cut back to him at the ceremony. Everybody's telling him to push it. And we absolutely didn't need the dream sequence. It added nothing, and it just distracted. It
Right.
made no sense.
Yeah. Just to show that there's issues pushing buttons, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
yeah.
Are
It's
you
because he had
kidding me?
his hand near the button. He was prepping for it, and he flashed back in a way to. He's like, I have bad dreams a lot, and his previous bad dreams were about the button.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
So that was
It
the whole reasoning behind it, but
that's
it wasn't shot super well.
That
like,
was it?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that
Yeah.
was terrible.
And so he went back to the PTSD of the cloning machine, if it wasn't destroyed or whatever, then would print the bad leader man, and there was a lady making her sauce again for whatever reason. And then he found out it was a dream. He's like, yeah, I'm just trying to be like Mickey 18. And then he grabs her hand, and I don't know what the hand was. I guess it was the controller, because then when he grabbed her hand, he snapped back to everyone being like, push the button, push the button. Okay.
Wow, that was really bad.
Yeah.
That was really bad.
It was, I understood what they were trying to do, but they didn't place it super well or execute it very well.
They didn't place it. I didn't get it until just now because it was so obscure.
Yeah.
Because he pressed the red button, he blames himself. We literally
Yeah.
got closure on that earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
18 told him.
We said it's not your fault, it was a defect in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We-
I still don't know what the button was, but
Yeah, we don't. We literally had closure, and then they try to make a point about it and connect it to past childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Again, no commitment.
yeah.
Just
And it was what little they did commit was dumb. So
holy smokes, that's terrible.
Yeah.
So again, $5. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you could probably leave after about
different.
50 minutes.
Yeah, it's different.
And I actually, because if we're going for like, there is a huge epidemic of sequels and remakes being the only thing made, and it's been going on way too long. I would seriously recommend that if you can spend the $5, do it. I don't think that the full price tickets are necessarily worth it, but the uniqueness, how it was shot, this was worth it.
You're in for something different.
It was sick,
Yeah.
and we want the money to go to the ones so the studios know that they work. And stop.
That being said, it
meddling.
will still go to Warner Brothers at the end of the day because
I
that's
know,
who
I
distributed this
know.
one. But
Yeah,
it was nice to see Brad Pitt associated with it. And
Yeah, Plan B
yeah,
Studios.
little studios that are, well, little.
Yeah.
that are smaller. So, well, hey, do we want to get to the list?
Yes, let's do it.
Cool.
So
I have to
every
pull it out.
single time we go through a list, we give a score to a movie. It is out of 5, and we post it on our Letterboxd. We are OTW Video on Letterboxd. Let's cut right now when we
Well,
come
let's
back.
let's explain the list real quick because it's been a few weeks since we've done one of these. So we have the categories are uniqueness, cinematography, story, execution, immersion, and emotional connection. And we'll rate all of those on a scale 1 through 5 in between us, average the score, and then come up with a 5-star, 1 through 5-star rating on Letterboxd. So we'll cut now and we'll get back to the scores.
And we're back with our scores. The first one is uniqueness.
Uniqueness. I thought this was a really unique movie. On its face, I gave it a 4. The only reason I didn't give it higher was because I was able to liken it to several other movies. So clearly there were some other movies that have tried a similar formula. But overall, I think the uniqueness was its strongest suit, for sure.
I'm in the exact same boat. I actually gave it a 5. There definitely are some parallels that you could draw between other movies, but the printing, the world, and all of that stuff, I was having a hard time thinking of anything that had really done this, in the way that this had been done. So I couldn't think of anything. So I'm giving it a 5. Uniqueness was what got me in the theater, and it's definitely its strongest point. Very unique movie.
Excellent. Okay. What you got for cinematography?
Cinematography, a 4. This is a movie where I was sitting there and I was actually looking at a lot of the shots and thinking, wow, I really like how that looks. Or, again, we keep coming back to the severed hand in the window. How that was shot and all of it, it was so funny. Like the camera moves and the framing all set up punchlines for us. So I would say that the cinematography was really, really good. I was annoyed with the overuse of CGI blurs in the ending, but I'm gonna lean towards the first half because I really enjoyed a lot of the shots, how they use comedy but shot it so beautifully as well. So cinematography is a 4.
Okay. Okay, I came in just a little bit lower with a 3, and I would say if 2.5 was average, if that was just middle of the line, the movie was not bad nor good. It was better simply because they did the double Robert Pattinsons really well. Beyond that, though, when I kind of just zoom out of the whole movie and think about colors and composition and just all of that, honestly, it was fine. I don't remember there being any sort of distinct cinematography that made it really interesting. It was shot decently. It was, there were a couple key moments where the action was good, or, where he was in a unique environment, or the comedy, like when he was being printed, it was shot profile, and there was, a person way in the background who noticed he was falling out of the printer, but then the person on gaming or whatever not paying attention, and then he flops out of the machine. And so, there was some where the cinematography helped inform the comedy, but I don't know. Overall, it was pretty meh, I thought.
Sure.
So.
On to the next one, which is story.
I gave story a 2, and it's not that since we already had uniqueness saying that the idea was good, I thought that the story itself and how it was written was pretty bad. There wasn't really one. I mean, you kind of just, like ADHD, followed your way through the movie to hey, next shiny thing, and next. And there was some, things that came back and looped and stuff, but generally speaking, I don't think I could tell you kind of what happened. I could tell you what happened, but not anywhere near shot for shot or anything. So I thought the story was pretty weak.
I'd have to agree with you. I gave story a 1.
Okay.
Yeah. I so wish that there was something that could hold it together. Again, the uniqueness held it together in the first half, and that's what we loved. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, all of the setup and everything did not have any payoff, which means that there really wasn't a story. They go from Earth to other planet, and
there were no arcs either, really.
Yeah,
except for the people who got killed because they were evil.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Mickey 17 didn't really change, and Mickey 18 changed from alive to dead. Spoilers. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then the girlfriend suddenly changed, and that was about it.
She was magically the leader. So the story kind of was non-existent. We were enthralled by the idea. And it probably would have suffered no matter what on that score. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, the story just really didn't exist very much. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Execution. What you got?
Execution at 2.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets 2 because I think it was shot pretty darn well. I think that the CGI was really good. The idea, again, in the beginning was so dang good. Mm-hmm. But you got to follow through. And it loses those valuable 3 extra points on this one. Because it didn't follow through. The execution needs to go all the way through the entire movie, and it fell off about halfway through. So execution's a 2.
Yeah, and I went even lower. My execution score's a 1.
Yeah.
It was such a good idea, so poorly done. They just needed to pick a lane. And at the end of the day, a simple movie is going to do better because it's something that people can actually resonate with. One theme. Just pick one theme and follow it through. And yeah, they couldn't even do that. It just was so scatterbrained.
Absolutely. Next one is Immersion.
Immersion, I gave it a 3. It was definitely above average in Immersion. I was invested. There were lots of scenes where I was like, why is this happening? And lots of scenes where I was kind of yanked out and then fairly easily yanked back in. But I was in it. I didn't check my watch outside of the one time that we both checked our watches. So yeah, Immersion was above average.
Yeah,
so 3.
I'm right at 2.5. I was immersed.
Right at average.
Literally, this one was decided by the 2 halves of this movie. I was immersed in the first half, and I was pretty unimmersed in the second half. So it just boils down to that. I was straight in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
2.5.
Fair enough. Okay. And then we've got emotional connection.
Yes, emotional connection, a 2. And the only reason it gets 2 is because I factored in the comedy. I was laughing. First half had me laughing and enjoying myself, and I would consider that an emotion, so it gets 2 points, but literally everything else, nothing. So it gets 2, but yeah, it doesn't get anything more because it was only laughter.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, the lack of theme for me also gives it a 2, because lack of theme means lack of any sort of emotion to connect with, because none of the characters explored any of the themes or anything like that. And at the end of the day, the Mickeys and all were different and funny in their own ways, but then the rest of the characters pretty much throughout were pretty throwaway. Yeah. And so I didn't resonate with anyone. I resonated more with kind of what we talked about at the beginning of the crossroads of doing this with real humans, like if this were a thing that was actually happening, and kind of the ickiness you might feel with that, or the possibility of cool things, And so that would have been emotionally connecting, because it would have been like, ooh, this is actually making me feel gross, or it's making me feel like curious. You get that for 20 minutes and then you don't. And yeah, for that alone, it's below average. So 2.
Absolutely. What was your final score?
Final average was right at 2.5.
2.5 plus 2.75 for myself is 5.2 divided by 2. So, Mickey 17, we have given you some notes. And your final score out of 5 is a
2.63.
2.625. So, right at a 2.5. Mm-hmm. Yep, this is
average.
This is what happens. This is exactly what happens when you come up with a movie idea and you follow through with it halfway. Mm-hmm. And then the rest you don't. You get literally the average score.
Yep. You came up with a really convincing log line. You pitched your movie to a producer. They're like, great, let's make it. And then that's where the follow through stopped.
Yeah, they needed a finisher. They needed a closer on this movie. Somebody that I want to look into the director. I couldn't remember any of his other movies. I want to look him up because there was definitely a problem of follow through in this movie. He didn't.
What did he do?
Yeah, he did an awesome job in the first half, and then it just fell apart in the second half. Therefore, a 2.5 is what she gets.
He is Bong Joon-ho is loading. Oh, his face looks familiar. Parasite screenplay. He's known for the screenplay for Parasite, so he's known as a writer, not really a director. His other director credits. Oh, so he did direct Parasite too. Snowpiercer.
See, I like Snowpiercer. I actually did. It had a satisfying ending and everything too.
Not very many American films though.
That makes sense.
So he must be a South Korean director. Because Parasite.
That kind of reaffirms my feeling that there was studio meddling. Because if he's known as a writer,
well, but then again, all the stuff that Parasite got for the Oscars, dude, he could get what he wants.
I know, yeah.
Because this movie had money. It definitely had money.
And I haven't seen Parasite. Did it have cohesion all the way through?
Yeah, Parasite was really good.
So this is a standout movie where it doesn't. So I'm really thinking there was studio meddling.
Yeah.
Because a writer, somebody who's known as writing, is not going. I'm really curious what his ending was. I really think that there was something that got pulled away from him.
And it could have been the fact that the book would have, maybe it was test audiences were like, no, the book was too dark, or
dude. And I swear, if it was test audiences that ruined his idea,
it is a lot of the time.
That sucks,
especially with adapted screenplays.
Yeah,
where you're writing off of a book that's compelling for a reason. Oh my gosh, it did have a big budget, $118 million.
$118 million.
So that's like scratching the surface of superhero movies.
Yeah,
that's a big budget.
Yep, absolutely.
So, dang.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it wasn't Parasite, but it was. Yeah, you should see Parasite. It's good.
Cool.
It was a movie.
It was a movie. So, it was a half of a movie is what I'll say. That's why I got half a score.
That's right. Well, hey, thanks for tuning in, guys. We understand it's been a second since we've done this, so please jump back on the train with us, and we'll continue to do it. New episodes coming out every Friday. So thank you for being here. I think this was fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a good movie.
Oh, we never explained it. For those in the back.
Wait. For those in the back who don't know what this is, look in the comments sections. Somebody point this out. You know what it is. You know why I released the movie. Exactly. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and good night.